Hi friends, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. This week we're going to take a look at a case that helped shape how law enforcement handles notification of the public when an offender who harms children moves into the area. So, as always, I ask you all to join me as we remember Megan Kanka. Megan Nicole Kanka was born on December 7, 1986 in Princeton, New Jersey, to parents Richard and Maureen Kanka. Megan was the youngest of 3 children, having both an older brother and sister. Megan grew up in Hamilton Township, New Jersey, where she attended Frederick R. Sayen School in Hamilton Square. She was also a communicant of Our Lady of Sorrows RC Church in Hamilton and a member of the YWCA Batons. According to Maureen, Megan was very much a little Maureen. Megan was very close to her mother. She was described as a kind, loving girl who had friends all over her neighborhood. She took the time to stop and pet any dog she saw and picked flowers to bring home to her mother. To the Kankas, Megan was the final piece that made their family whole. During the summer of 1994, Megan was taking advantage of the long, warm nights. She was due to start the 2nd grade soon and took every opportunity to spend time with her closest friends. And July 29th was no different. Maureen laid down around 6:30 p.m. to relax, and Megan decided to hop on her bike and visit with her friend until it was time to come home. Megan left the house without another thought. When Maureen got up a little bit later, she realized Megan had not made it back. Maureen started to look for her daughter. She asked several neighbors if they'd seen Megan, with most replying that they had seen her earlier in the day, but not since. But the panic set in when they discovered her bike. Maureen phoned the police, who arrived at the neighborhood shortly after 8 p.m. She provided a current photo and a description of the clothing she was last seen in. Maureen also provided a pair of shorts that resembled the ones Megan was wearing. The Kanka home and property were searched, and nothing was discovered. They moved on to the next phase of the investigation by questioning their neighbors. Police started with the man who last saw Megan, Jesse Temendaquaz. Jesse wasn't well known to the Kankas. Maureen described him as very normal speaking and calm. He was very matter-of-fact during their conversation. Jesse lived in the house across from the Kankas with 2 roommates, Joseph Cefali and Brian Jenin. Jesse claimed he saw Megan earlier that day around 2:30 p.m. riding her bike, when he was outside washing his boat. She and her friends stopped to talk and ask questions about the boat. Jesse claimed he was the only one home at the time since his roommates were out shopping. This struck investigators as odd, since his statement and time frame conflicted with that of both Megan's mother and other neighbors. Because of this, they started to pay closer attention to Jesse and his roommates. Police requested permission from the owner of the property to search the house, yard, and boat. During the sweep through, they discovered nothing of interest, but took the opportunity to question the residents. Joseph, Brian, and Jesse were interviewed individually. Both Joseph and Brian provided alibis stating they were out shopping from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. and did not see Megan. Jesse was interviewed again, where he explained he had gone out that day with his roommates and purchased the boat. He watched it in front of the house when he spoke to Megan, changing the time frame from 2:30 p.m. to 5 to 5:30 p.m. He referred to Megan as the neighborhood child. Jesse stated this was the only time he saw Megan that day. The detective noticed Jesse's demeanor shift during the second interview. Rather than his calm tone he had earlier, he was noticeably shaking and sweating heavily. Due to his nervousness and changing accounts, police decided to take him to headquarters for a separate interview. Jesse agreed to go, but only if he drove himself. Officers followed closely behind. They arrived at the station before 3 a.m. Jesse waived his rights and agreed to help the police in any way he could. After his arrival, the police decided to dig a little deeper into the man under their custody. It turned out Jesse was not a stranger to crimes involving children. Jesse had 2 previous convictions of assaulting young girls. In October of 1979, he pleaded guilty to the attempted aggravated assault of a 5-year-old girl. He lured the young girl away with the promise of finding ducks. Because he agreed to plead guilty, he was offered a suspended sentence with no jail time if he attended counseling. Jesse, however, did not meet these requirements, so he was sent to jail for 9 months in Middlesex County Adult Correctional Center. Then, in June of 1981, he enticed a 7-year-old girl to walk with him in nearby woods for fireworks. Jesse, again, attacked the child. He allegedly strangled her until she was nearly blue and unconscious. He left her to die. Thankfully, the girl's mother found her before it was too late. For this charge, Jesse pleaded guilty to attempting to cause serious bodily injury. In his ruling, the judge called Jesse compulsive and a repeat offender who constituted a danger to the public at large and young children in particular. Because of this, he imposed the max sentence of 10 years. Jesse was committed to the Adult Diagnostic and Treatment Center. While here, Jesse didn't engage in therapy sessions, but he did meet his 2 future roommates. It turned out Jesse, Joseph, and Brian assaulted children and were in the center for treatment. With little participation on his part, Jesse was released after serving just 6 years. His background jumped him up to primary suspect. Once at the station, police asked Jesse for a written statement of his account from July 29th. His written statement, again, conflicted with the previous accounts he gave officials. In this statement, he stated he saw the victim a second time at 6:30 p.m., whereas he had previously claimed only to see her once. After the statement, he provided consent to search his vehicle. During the search, officers discovered a brown toy chest and a piece of black felt in the back of the vehicle. Fingerprints were also lifted. Due to the lack of evidence, they chose not to charge Jesse at that time, and asked he return in the morning for another round of interviews. He left the station around 4 a.m. Hours later, police arrived at the house again to search the boat and gather prints. Although nothing of suspicion was found in the boat, the investigating officer noted trash cans were now placed between the curb and the boat. The trash cans were not present the day before. Again, they obtained consent to remove the trash and take it back to the station for examination. While searching the garbage, officers found rope with knots tied into it and a substance that appeared to be dry blood on the band of a small pair of pants. They also discovered a piece of material that matched the waistband. The clothing items were removed and taken to Maureen, who confirmed they belonged to Megan. Maureen went to the station where she made a statement. Around noon, Jesse returned and once again waived his rights. He provided another written statement where the differences between the first and the second were noticed yet again. He continued to deny his involvement. After his statement, Jesse was shown the clothing retrieved from the trash. He identified them as rags from his job and reiterated he had nothing to do with Megan's disappearance. He was questioned for another 6 hours before he started to crack. Jesse, at the end of his questioning, asked to speak to his roommate Brian. Brian arrived at the interview room where he was heard telling Jesse, "They got you. They got you. You're going to need a friend on the outside. I'll be that friend." In response, Jesse, who had placed his head on the table, lifted it long enough to look at his friend and stated, "She's in Mercer County Park." Police entered the room and started to dig for more information. Jesse confirmed Megan was gone and that he'd placed a bag over her head. He agreed to take police to her body. Jesse was taken to the park where he led them right to Megan. He left her hidden in the tall weeds. On the car ride back, he decided to take them through the previous day's events. He explained he saw Megan after she left her home that evening, and he'd watched her play from across the street for some time, and claimed he would get sweaty palms and his heart would race. He decided that day was the day since he was home alone. He asked Megan if she wanted to come over and see his new puppy, and she agreed. Jesse took Megan into the house and then led her to his bedroom. He started to touch her, and Megan did not want this. She screamed out and tried to run out of the room. Jesse feared she would tell someone what happened, so he grabbed her by her shorts and pulled her back into the room. During this scuffle, he claimed she fell, hitting her head on the doorframe and then a nearby dresser. He grabbed a belt and put it around her neck, pulling until she was unconscious. Once Megan quit moving, he noticed her head was bleeding, so he decided to place a bag on her head to prevent blood from getting on the carpet. His roommates arrived home shortly after. He thought she was dead, so he placed her in a large toy box and carried her downstairs. He placed the box in his vehicle, where he thought he had heard her cough. Jesse explained his original plan was to leave Megan in a different area, but due to police activity, he ultimately decided on Mercer Park. After leaving her in the weeds, he went to a gas station for cigarettes and a paper, then returned home and ripped up her shorts. He went outside, where he encountered Maureen, frantically searching for Megan. He told Maureen he'd seen her earlier on her bike and even offered to pass out flyers and search with the rest of the neighborhood. After signing his statement, Jesse's clothing was removed, his fingerprints were collected, and his fingernails were clipped. Officers noted a bite mark present on his hand. Megan's autopsy was performed where hemorrhages in both eyes were present, which were consistent with strangulation. A ligature mark on her neck was consistent with that of the belt recovered from Jesse's room. An analysis of the bite mark from Jesse's hand and Megan's teeth showed the marks were made by Megan. Megan showed signs of both blunt force trauma and internal bleeding. Bruising was present on her back, arms, and legs, indicating she was likely held down. Tearing in the hymenal margin was also present, indicating assault. The cause of death was due to strangulation. The plastic bags hastened but did not cause death. After the autopsy results, Jesse was questioned again because he originally omitted the part of assaulting Megan. He provided another statement where he detailed the assault step by step. After signing this second statement, he told officers he could feel himself slipping for a while, but he didn't know how to control it, referring to his attraction to young girls. A forensic examination of the rug cuttings from his bedroom concluded Megan's DNA markers were consistent with 2 of the samples provided. Blood was also found on the belt, which matched her DNA markers. Trace evidence from her shorts contained fibers that matched both chemically and physically to Jesse's bedroom rug, sleeping bag, and the lint trap of the dryer. Fibers found on Jesse's sweatpants also matched those taken from Megan's shirt. 30 hairs were found near his bed, on a dishcloth, on the carpet, and on the black felt from his vehicle. They all had the same physical and microscopic qualities as Megan's. 4 hairs on her shirt were also consistent with Jesse's pubic hair. Seminal fluid was also found on Megan, but it was insufficient to perform a DNA test. Jesse was formally charged with felony murder, first-degree kidnapping, and first-degree aggravated assault. In May of 1997, a jury convicted him on all counts, and he was sentenced to death. Jesse remained on death row in New Jersey until December 17, 2007. Capital punishment was abolished by the state, so his death sentence was commuted to life in prison without the possibility of parole. After Megan's murder, her parents spearheaded a campaign to enact legislation to ensure the safety of children. In 1989, the murder of Jacob Wetterling led to the creation of the Jacob Wetterling Act, which required offenders of sex crimes to be registered. However, this registry failed to inform the general public about these offenders. They were not required to disclose their offender status when moving. Maureen Kanka stated prior to Megan's murder, they had no idea Jesse or the residents across the street were previous offenders. If they had, this would have been a different outcome. For the Kankas, they lived in the neighborhood for 15 years and always felt safe. At one point, they chose not to move just because of how much they loved the neighborhood. So the Kankas decided this needed to change. Megan's Law was offered as a solution. Passed in New Jersey just 3 months after her murder, the law was modeled after similar laws in Oregon, which provided police registration and community notification when offenders are released into a particular neighborhood. With the New Jersey law, it identified offenders according to risk factor. For low risk, only police were notified of where they lived. Medium would be schools and daycares, and for high-risk offenders, anyone who was likely to encounter the offender was notified. Risk was determined by several things such as number of offenses, if a weapon was used in their crime, age of their victim, and whether the offender had therapy for their crime. In 1995, the New Jersey Supreme Court upheld Megan's law. However, they faced some challenges at the federal level due to whether notification of the offender's personal information was constitutional or not. In May of 1996, the Jacob Wetterling Crimes Against Children law was passed federally. Then on September 13, 1996, the notification portion of Megan's law was federally passed. The passing of Megan's law at a federal level gave states 1 year to pass a version of this law. If they failed to do so, they lost federal aid. At the time, 47 states plus the District of Columbia already passed laws that required registration and some sort of notification. It was left up to the states to decide risk factor of offenders and how they would notify the community. After the passage of Megan's law, the Kankas claimed, "We have said all along that no law is going to prevent every assault on a child, but if it saves just one, it will be worth it." In interviews, Maureen has stated, "I have no problems opening my heart and crying and being personal with strangers, as long as I can open someone's eyes." The Kankas recognize Megan's story has done more than create laws. It started a movement across the country. They dedicated their lives to exposing those who harm children. They traveled the country and prodded politicians to start conversations no one wanted to have. Maureen made it clear, don't sugarcoat it. Tell them what happens to little children by these offenders. They made it their mission to honor Megan by protecting children. Megan was laid to rest at the St. Mary's Cemetery in Hamilton, New Jersey. The house where Megan was murdered was torn down and replaced with a memorial park dedicated to Megan's memory. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, so leave them below and we can chat about this case. If you found this to be informative, please consider giving the video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you want more from me. And if you're not subscribed yet, you should, because we would love to have you under the ash tree. I'm going to put a link in the description for Megan's Law because it has a lot of helpful information for parents on how to protect their children. Also, I wanted to go ahead and apologize too because I recently started getting a cold and I didn't want to delay this video too much, so I decided to get this out there before it got really bad. So if I sound a little whiny, that's why, and I'm sorry for that. But thank you all for your love and support. You don't have to be here, but you are, and that truly means so much to me. I hope you all have an amazing week ahead of you, because you deserve it. But for now, we must part ways. This video should be out before Thanksgiving, so if you celebrate, happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you get to spend it with those you hold most dear. So stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.